Welcome to the First Reviews podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to director Adam Stern about his new film Levels, which opens up in theaters November 1st. Adam, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. Yeah, good to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. We've had a lot of fun talking about the movie today. Yeah, doing all right.
That's awesome. Hopefully, I come up with some questions that no one has thought of yet. So
Yeah, that's exciting. All right.
let's get into it. So, why don't you start by telling me a little bit about Levels and how you came up with the story and the concept?
Sure. Back a number of years ago, actually, 2019 is when I wrote the first draft of the script. It was at a time. First, I am a huge science fiction fan. I love reading it. I love watching films and shows, and I love the opportunity to be able to tell stories within the medium. And I think it offers some interesting ability. And at the time, back in 2018, 2019, like I'm sure many people, I was getting increasingly frustrated with what was happening in the world, our dialogue with each other, the us and theming of everyone, and this sort of what seemed like a lack of empathy, and these toxic political environments, and a term started coming out, was used a lot, sort of late, 2019 and 2020, and moving forward of, or it feels like we're living in the worst timeline. And that really hit me, like I'm sure a lot of people, but I kind of ran with that as the pitch for Levels. It's like, well, what if we are living in the worst timeline? And what if that is intentional? What if by its very construction, we're living in a timeline or in a world that is essentially designed to defeat us? And it sort of came from there. The important thing, though, for me was to have that sort of large concept really get very small and be about people connecting with each other and love and empathy, and how important that was for all of us, and what felt like it was missing for me in so many interactions at the time, and then moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting, such an interesting point. The topic of this, multiple reality or simulation theory have been in topics of conversations for a few years now.
Yeah.
This film, puts its own spin on it. What was the writing process like to get that theory that you created right?
Yeah. Just a lot of, certainly I did a lot of research and have always been fascinated by simulation theory conceptually. But in the end, the writing was more about trying to find the core of the story, and what it would mean if, as opposed to us thinking that we can create a simulated world, the real thing I kept in my head the whole time is, what if our world, I'm looking around my home office right now, what if this is the simulation? And what if we are the technologically created universe? And does that devalue us? Does that make us less than what our creator is, and whatever that might be? And what I really thought about a lot is just the semantics of whether you call it a simulation, or you call it technology or mythology, or creation, mythology, whatever. I mean, maybe we're just using words to describe the same thing, and it's just the semantics of it. And so based on that, I wanted to find the story of Joe and Ash and really work on it from that small level, and then expand it outwards from there. And it took a lot of drafts, and I'm certainly happy with it, how it came out. I would redo the whole thing again at this point, which I know everybody sort of thinks that way. But yeah, it was basically that, and then just trying to work it. And the script went through a number of drafts and feedback and coverage and all that kind of normal stuff. But that was basically it.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about the film is how grounded it is. And you talked about your characters, Joe and Ash, and how it affects them, discovering all of these things that are going on around them.
Yeah.
As much as it is an action film, a thriller, it's a very grounded film. How important was this for you to incorporate that balance in the film?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that was of key import to me. First of all, look, this was very much an indie film, and whether or not I wanted spectacle, that wasn't what the nature of this film was. Yes, big ideas and certainly some visual effects and all of that, But the most important thing to me was to keep it as grounded as possible, to tell sort of a small story in a larger world. And that was really the push all the way through. And it's not because we didn't have much choice in the matter. Regardless, it works in our favor, I think, in that way. I mean, we weren't going to be able to spend more than 3 to 4 weeks to shoot it and all of that kind of stuff. But regardless, whether we did this for 1 million, 10 million, or 100 million, I wanted to keep it as grounded as possible. That was very key.
Awesome. The shooting location, was it in Toronto, Vancouver, or
we shot in Winnipeg, actually?
Shot in Winnipeg.
Yeah, okay. We were initially going to shoot it in Vancouver, and then we were looking at Toronto, and then in the end we settled on Winnipeg. I had two producing partners on the film, and one of them, Kyle Burnett, has a production company in Winnipeg, Farpoint Films, and so we started looking at that, and it worked out really well. I mean, it was cold. Cara Gee does a fight scene in the film in an alley, and it was, I think, -30 with wind chill when we shot that scene. So that stuff wasn't fun, but great crews. We had a great soundstage and facilities, and some really good food. So, and yeah, we were in Winnipeg for a couple of months doing it.
Awesome. You directed this film, you wrote it, you also composed it. What was it like, taking on all of these hats in order to, fully complete the film? And what are some pros and cons to taking on all those roles?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, and there are definitely pros and cons. To me, I wrote it because I wanted something to direct. So I didn't come at it from the perspective necessarily of, I want to be a writer and I'm going to write a bunch of stuff and hope to direct stuff. I think actually I saw Christopher Nolan quoted about this at some time relatively recently, saying the reason he wrote his first films is because he needed to give himself something to make, because no one was going to give him a film to make at that point in his career. And so, and that really kind of resonated with me. It's like no one was going to give me a film to direct. I wanted to tell a story, but I also do like the process of writing, and I felt like this was a story I wanted to tell. So the writing and directing component of it, I do think that there are a lot of pros there. They go hand in hand because they inform each other on set. If something needs to change, and it happens a lot, I'm able to swap my writer director hats and figure out, how to approach things from the writing perspective or the directing perspective. The composing to me is kind of a bonus. I started before spending many years working in the visual side of the film industry. I've been a musician forever. I love it. I never, years and years ago, I was like a touring keyboardist and all that kind of stuff, but I never worked as a composer for hire. But I love it. I absolutely love it. And so I joke sometimes that I'm trying to make films to give myself the opportunity to score them because I love the process. I think the overall big con of taking on too many roles, putting too many hats on, is that it's very easy to lose objectivity and to have those sort of guardrails of other people saying, hey, maybe you should think about that. Fortunately, I had that with my producers, my producing partners, my editor, who's absolutely fantastic, and a bunch of other people that worked on the film. To be able to, call me on stuff. I thought, certainly that was really important. And I worked with a very experienced cinematographer who was very helpful. This was my debut feature. So, he was instrumental in helping me design shot lists and figure out the day and all of that kind of stuff. So, even though, yes, I'm wearing those 3 hats, I had a lot of support in all of those roles. Yeah.
In the film, there's a lot of new takes on different technology that we have. If you could incorporate one of these technologies that you essentially created in the film and bring it into modern world, our world, which piece would you take?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. And we were speaking about this at one point. The funny thing is, and maybe there's somewhat ironically, I think I've turned into a bit of a Luddite over the past few years with what's been happening with AI and everything. I've always been someone that feels more comfortable getting my initial thoughts out on pen and paper and, being in front of a piano or a guitar or whatever. So I probably, if you had asked me that question a couple of years ago, I would say, well, it'd be really cool to have contacts that, were heads up displays and that you could, get all this AR information. Nowadays, I'm like, I don't want any of that stuff near me. I find it too frightening, like surrendering control. That said, I mean, a funky morphing tablet would be a lot of fun. and the ability to have any surface in your apartment or house be a smart surface that can be a display if you want or not if you don't want. I like those things, and
Yeah,
those feel like they offer convenience as opposed to completely taking over your life.
that's true. I really like the TV projector that he had.
That
Uh,
was fun.
that was really
Yeah,
fun. Yeah, because it just
yeah,
like completely disappeared. But it like the quality of the screen looked like it was an actual screen, not just a projection.
yeah. We were
Yeah,
playing with sort of the idea that if the paint itself on walls, perhaps the paint itself is like a digital a pixel element that can just sort of do what it needs to at any given time. And yeah, I thought that was sort of a fun thing to do.
yeah. In the film, we get to see, no, I don't want to spoil anything, but we get to see the film is called Levels. If you can create your own level, if you would be the god figure of your level, what
Yeah.
would your level look like?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, uh, I think it would likely be pretty utopian from the perspective, at least from my perspective. Like, um, you know, uh, people getting back to surrounding themselves with nature, and I hate to sound trite, but kindness and people being good with each other and enjoying the world around them. So probably lots of nature, lots of green and water and less technology, to be honest. Yeah.
Less technology.
Yeah.
And my final question is, what sci-fi films inspire you?
Oh, I mean, I love. So I'm a huge fan of so much science fiction. One of I think probably my favorite films now are from Denis Villeneuve. I say that, look, I'm a huge Dune fan. I've always been, and I love the Dune movies. But when I say that, I'm thinking more in context with Levels. I'm thinking more about some of his earlier films, Arrival, even some of the non-science fiction stuff. I just, this sense of world that he creates, this looming sense of big and starkness, and but small stories within those worlds. I love that. Huge fan of Christopher Nolan. Love Interstellar. Love space stuff. Hoping to do something in space as one of my next projects. So those films I think are seminal films for me. I love them, and then I love all sorts of stuff. I mean, going back, I was talking earlier about the fact that people always when I first met Cara Gee's husband, I did a short film with him years ago, and he sat down in my office and he said, "Okay, first question: Star Trek, Star Wars." And I just looked at him without thinking. I said, "Star Trek. I'm a Star Trek kid. That's what I grew up on, and I love that sort of optimistic view of the future, which I'm starting to get maybe a bit less optimistic right now, but all the way through Star Trek, one of my favorite things growing up as a kid and seeing where it's gone." And I could go on and on. I mean, look, I love the Matrix films for sure. Certainly the first one, and so much else. I haven't talked about Inception. That's also one of my other favorites. So yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, you'll have to stop me because I'll just.
No, okay. So Levels comes out November 1st across Canada. You can check it out in theaters. Adam, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was great to meet you, and I appreciate it.
Great
Yeah,
meeting you as well. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.